How did the ancient Egyptians align the Great Pyramid perfectly with true north more than 4,500 years ago? What motivated the Olmec to carve huge human heads from solid basalt thousands of years ago? Was Homer a real man? Or just a name given to tales passed down for centuries? And if no one can prove who Homer was, who actually wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey? These are only a few of the questions we still cannot answer. Despite years of research and searching, much of our past is so puzzling that even today, no one can explain it. So, can you crack these mysteries? Let's find out. Number 15. The Tophet of Carthage. The mystery here is not the place itself, but what the Carthaginians were actually doing there. Outside ancient Carthage stood the Tophet, a sacred burial ground containing thousands of urns filled with the cremated remains of infants and young children, sometimes alongside animals. Stone markers found there carry dedications to Baal Hammon and Tanit, two major Carthaginian deities, which makes the site even harder to explain. Greek and Roman writers accused Carthage of sacrificing children to its gods, and discoveries at the Tophet appeared, at first, to support those disturbing accounts. But there is another side to the argument. Rome was Carthage's bitter enemy, so its writers were hardly neutral witnesses, while some researchers believe the Tophet may instead have served as a cemetery for children who died naturally at very young ages. Both interpretations have archaeological arguments behind them. We know whose remains were buried there. What we still cannot settle is how those poor children died. Number 14. The Thornborough Henges Well. About 5,000 years ago, people in North Yorkshire were looking at the same night sky we see today. But they may have done something remarkable with it. The three enormous Thornborough Henges sit roughly 550 meters apart, following a northwest to southeast line with the middle circle slightly out of place. That otherworldly arrangement has often been compared with Orion's belt, whose three stars also form a similar crooked line. Each earthwork is roughly 240 meters across, and excavations suggest parts of the banks may once have been coated with white gypsum, making them stand out dramatically across the landscape. Archaeologists remain cautious about claiming the builders deliberately copied Orion, since no written explanation survives. Still, the resemblance is difficult to ignore. If those Neolithic communities really shaped three gigantic monuments after the stars overhead, what did Orion mean to them? And why was recreating it on Earth important enough to require such an enormously great effort? Number 13. Was Caesarion truly Caesar's son? Cleopatra gave her son a name that left very little doubt about who she wanted the world to believe his father was. Born in 47 BC, Ptolemy XV Caesar became better known as Caesarion, meaning Little Caesar, and Cleopatra openly presented him as Julius Caesar's child. The timing certainly makes that possible, since Caesar had been with Cleopatra in Egypt months earlier. But Caesar himself never publicly recognized Caesarion as his son, and that silence has kept the question alive for 2,000 years. One of Caesar's supporters, Gaius Oppius, even wrote a work arguing that the boy was not his. Cleopatra later made Caesarion her co-ruler, giving him enormous political importance. After her defeat and death in 30 BC, Octavian had the young ruler killed, ending any future claim he might have made through Caesar. No confirmed remains of either Caesar or Caesarion survive for DNA testing. So, what is the actual truth? Number 12. The Dogon people of Mali. We know a lot about ancient civilizations. But what we don't know is where some of their super strangest stories came from. In Mali, the Dogon people told French researchers Marcel Griol and Germaine Dieterlen about the Namo, beings connected with water, the sky, and the star Sirius. Their accounts became famous because Griol claimed the Dogon knew about Sirius B, the faint companion of Sirius. along with details about its orbit that seemed impossible without telescopes. That mystery became even stranger when people compared the Namo with Oannes, a fish-like teacher described in surviving accounts of ancient Babylonian tradition. But there is a serious problem with the story. Anthropologist Walter Van Beek later studied the Dogon and could not reproduce Griot's findings, raising the possibility that outside astronomical knowledge had entered the earlier interviews. So where did the serious story really begin, with an old Dogon tradition, cultural contact, or the researchers themselves? Number 11. The princes in the tower. Being a prince usually meant protection. But for Edward and Richard, it may have placed them in danger. In 1483, after their dad Edward IV died, the 12-year-old Edward V and his 9-year-old brother were taken to the Tower of London. Their uncle Richard was supposed to protect them until Edward became king. That coronation never happened. The boys were declared illegitimate. Richard took the crown as Richard III. And something troubling followed. People saw the brothers less and less at the tower windows until one day they stopped appearing altogether. No funeral followed, no confirmed bodies were produced, and no reliable account explained where they had gone. Richard was accused of having them killed, while later stories claimed they escaped. Bones believed to be theirs were eventually uncovered beneath a tower staircase, but their identity remains unproven. 2 royal children simply disappeared behind palace walls, leaving one question unanswered for over 5 centuries. What happened to the princes in the tower? Number 10. The Tal'Kadi Sky Tablet. If this thing really is a map, then it could change what we know about people living in Malta around 4,500 years ago. Archaeologists recovered this limestone tablet from the prehistoric temple of Tal'Kadi, but the markings across its surface are what make it so puzzling. Lines, small points, and curved shapes appear arranged in a pattern that some researchers believe may represent stars. Parts of the carving have worn away, leaving its original meaning difficult to judge. One theory connects the design with constellations or the movement of stars across the night sky, suggesting people here may have tracked what they saw above them. That would give Tal'Kadi another possible purpose beyond religious ceremonies. The problem is that its makers left no explanation behind. We have the stone and its unusual markings, yet no way of knowing whether we are looking at an ancient sky map or something completely different. Number 9. The ancient Egyptian Neteru. The ancient Egyptians left behind so many mysteries that even their own records can leave us wondering where history ends and sacred tradition begins. The Turin King List, written during the reign of Ramesses II, traces Egypt's rulers beyond familiar pharaohs into a much earlier age associated with divine kings. Egyptian tradition spoke of the Neteru, usually translated as gods, including figures such as Ra, Osiris, and Horus, who were said to rule before human kings. Other writings remembered a distant sacred age called Zep Tepi, or the first time, when the world and its divine order were established. None of this proves that non-human beings physically governed Egypt. Historians generally understand these accounts as religious tradition rather than literal political records. Yet the Egyptians placed these divine rulers into their story of kingship with remarkable seriousness. That leaves us with a fascinating question: why did one of history's greatest civilizations remember its earliest rulers as gods rather than humans? Number 8. The forgotten city of Jado, Africa is truly enormous, but surprisingly, entire chapters of its past can still leave us with almost nothing to work with. Far into northern Niger, surrounded by the unforgiving Sahara, stand the crumbling remains of Jado, an old fortified settlement whose beginnings are remarkably difficult to pin down. Mud brick walls, towers, passageways, and abandoned buildings rise from a plateau where maintaining a large community would have demanded water, trade, and careful organization. The Kanuri were among Jaddo's last known inhabitants, yet researchers still debate who first established the settlement and how far back its story reaches. Different peoples crossed this part of the Sahara over centuries, making its origins even harder to untangle. Eventually, Jaddo was deserted, and the desert slowly took possession of what remained. We can see that people once built, traded, and survived here, but one question refuses to disappear. Who first built Jaddo, and why choose such an unforgiving corner of the Sahara? Number 7. The missing Romanov jewels. The Romanovs lost their empire, their freedom, and even their lives. But somewhere during that nightmare, part of their jewelry collection also slipped away. After the Russian Revolution, the imperial family's palaces and possessions were seized by the Bolsheviks. Alexandra and her daughters managed to keep valuable diamonds, pearls, and other stones, secretly sewing many into their clothing while under guard. When the family was executed in 1918, jewels were discovered among their belongings and even inside their clothes. Much of the imperial collection was later photographed, catalogued, broken apart, sold overseas, or placed in Soviet hands. Yet not every piece known from earlier records can be followed to a final destination. That missing trail has fed stories of gems buried in Siberia, carried away by loyal servants, stolen during the confusion, or sold without anyone realizing their royal past. Some Romanov treasures survived. Others seemingly disappeared during the revolution and may still be somewhere today. Number 6. Chimney Rock. Nearly 1,000 years ago, the ancestral Pueblo people carried stone and timber to the top of Chimney Rock, a harsh mesa in southern Colorado with no easy water supply. The choice looks odd until we look at the moon. During a major lunar standstill, an event that returns about every 18.6 years, the full moon rises between Chimney Rock's two towering spires when viewed from the Great House. Tree ring dates make the story even more interesting. Major construction occurred around 1076, with later work around 1093–94, close to the next standstill cycle. That suggests generations were watching the sky closely enough to remember a pattern lasting longer than many human lives. Building there demanded effort, planning, and a reason strong enough to justify both. We know the alignment works, and we know the builders chose that difficult summit. What we cannot know is what seeing the moon framed between those rocks meant to them. Number 5. Mokele Mbembe. We have all heard the stories about the Loch Ness Monster, but the Congo has a creature that may be even weirder. For years, people in the Congo Basin have spoken of Mokele Mbembe, a bug animal said to live in rivers and swamps far from populated areas. Witnesses describe a smooth-skinned creature with 4 legs, a long neck, and a body big enough to remind outsiders of a sauropod dinosaur. That comparison turned a local tradition into an international mystery. Expeditions have entered the region for decades, hoping to find tracks, bones, photographs, or anything that could prove such an animal exists, but nothing has ever surfaced. Scientists regard the story as folklore, misidentification, or memories of familiar animals transformed over time. Still, the Congo Basin covers a vast and difficult landscape where new species continue to be documented. So what have local witnesses really been seeing in those remote waterways? Number 4. Is the Copper Scroll treasure real? Finding an ancient treasure map sounds like something written for an adventure movie, except the Copper Scroll is real. Archaeologists discovered it in 1952 inside Cave 3 near Qumran, where the Dead Sea Scrolls had been found. Unlike the other manuscripts, this one was written on copper, and its message was nothing like a religious text. It lists dozens of places where enormous amounts of gold, silver, coins, and valuable objects were supposedly buried. One entry mentions treasure beneath steps, another points toward a tomb, while others give directions that probably made perfect sense to whoever wrote them. Unfortunately, many of those landmarks mean almost nothing to us now. The scroll dates to the Roman period, leading to theories that valuables were concealed during unrest in Judea, possibly to keep them away from Roman hands. Searches have never produced the fortune described. Was it recovered centuries ago, still buried somewhere? Or was there never any treasure to begin with? Number 3, the Dendera Zodiac. Ancient Egypt gave us plenty of strange puzzles. But the Dendera Zodiac feels like somebody left part of the night sky carved in stone. Found in a chapel at the Temple of Hathor, this circular relief shows zodiac constellations, Egyptian star groups, and the 5 planets known in antiquity. The original was removed to France during the 19th century and is now kept at the Louvre. What makes the carving especially fascinating is the possibility that it records real astronomical events. Egyptologist Sylvie Coville and astronomer Rick Oberg linked symbols on the disk with a lunar eclipse on September 25, 52 BC, and a solar eclipse on March 7, 51 BC, alongside matching planetary positions. Not everyone agrees that the design represents one precise moment, but its astronomical detail is undeniable. So, were Egyptian priests decorating a sacred ceiling, or were they preserving a particular sky for people centuries later to decode? Number 2. The Beast of Vaudon. In 1764, something was killing farmers in the Vaudon region of France, and whatever it was, it did not behave like an ordinary predator. Victims were attacked with such violence that panic quickly spread through nearby villages, while surviving witnesses described a large animal with reddish fur, dark markings, powerful jaws, and a long tail. Women and children appeared among its most frequent targets, making the fear even worse. The attacks became so serious that King Louis XVI sent hunters and soldiers into the region and offered rewards for killing the beast. A lot of wolves were shot, including one displayed as the beast, but deaths kept going. Then, in 1767, local hunter Jean Chastel killed another large wolf, and the attacks finally stopped. Historians have suggested wolves, hybrids, escaped exotic animals, or even several predators acting separately. But centuries later, nobody can say with certainty what terrorized Vaudon. Number 1. The Bimmeron Casket and the Buddha Mystery. Afghanistan might not be the place we expect to find a mystery that could change the early history of Buddhist art. But the Bimmeron Casket has caused that debate for nearly 2 centuries. Charles Masson uncovered the tiny gold reliquary during the 1830s, along with coins connected to the Indo-Scythian king Azes. For years, those coins were attributed to Azes II, although some historians now argue this ruler never existed separately from Azes I. That disagreement matters because the coins help researchers determine the casket's age. Then there is the figure decorating it, an unusually early human representation of Buddha, surrounded by clear Greco-Roman artistic influence. If the earlier dating is correct, Buddha was being shown in human form sooner than historians once believed. But changing the coin chronology could push that date forward considerably. One little golden casket has therefore left researchers with a surprisingly difficult question. Just how old is this image of Buddha? Well, that's all from us. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe. Stay curious, and we'll see you soon.